Hi, I'm Brett Godfrey, and this is Viewpoint. Today's installment, we're going to talk about following your dreams, pursuing your dreams, actualizing your dreams. As of the point of time I'm in right now, I haven't even named this podcast because chasing your dreams implies that they are running away from you. And following your dreams implies that they have their own path and you're just sort of on a leash behind your dreams. Making your dreams a reality, you see that in books, you see that in lots of things. But I just want to share almost stream of consciousness with you, some ideas about being on a path to achieve your dreams as opposed to feeling like you're locked in slavery in an ordinary everyday job that you don't like or some other life circumstance that you wish you weren't in. The question is, what do you fantasize about? When you're at home on a Sunday morning, maybe you're sipping your coffee, makes life worth living. And you think about, wow, I wish I was this, or I wish I was that, or I wish I had this, or I wish I had that. Those are interesting thoughts, and those are a starting point for us. Before I delve too much further into this, let me tell you that what I'm about to say to you doesn't depend on how old you are, and it doesn't depend on what your dreams are. It depends on what you're doing in relationship to whatever those dreams may be. And I'd also like to talk to you about the distinction between being and having. I want to have this, I want to have that, I want to have a Gulfstream jet, I want to have a 70,000-ton yacht, the size of Royal Caribbean cruise liner. I want to have several private helicopters. I want to have all kinds of things. Maybe I want to have my own space rocket. I could buy one from Elon. But at the end of the day, does that change my life to have those things? Whereas being something else, being the person you want to be, following the career that you want to follow. We talk about having a career, but a career is a doing thing. Careers are what we do. They're not necessarily something that we have. When I was a young boy, about age 14, I was working in under a special work permit in Cheyenne, Wyoming on a demolition crew. And my job was essentially to swing a sledgehammer all day and help manually demolish buildings. About half of my time went into that, and half of my time went into what we call cleaning lumber, which is where I used a pair of horseshoe tongs to pull nails out of wood that had been salvaged from the buildings we're tearing apart. 10-hour days. It was a brutal job. I was making $4.65 an hour. Of course, I'm only 14, and some job is better than no job. But one day, my father, who was a really prominent trial lawyer in Wyoming, had a hearing that he had to attend up in Rock Springs, Wyoming. And keep in mind, I lived in Cheyenne. So my father and I went to the airport. I decided to go with him because I did accompany him on a lot of business travel. So we went to the airport in Cheyenne, and we were picked up by a Gulfstream. And we were flown to Rock Springs, and there was a hearing. And it was jam-packed. It was about an injunction to keep the townspeople from vandalizing a plant that belonged to a local energy company. But I watched my father basically take control of that entire courtroom full of hostile people and start to work out a way to communicate meaningfully and have a sharing of ideas, and developed a sense of community that included the energy company. And, of course, the judge granted the injunction he was after, but that wasn't the point. The point is he was able to speak directly to the most active citizens in the town that were the real rabble-rousers, the ones that were constantly trying to roll over cars that had the company's logo on the side in the middle of Main Street in that town. There was a lot of upset. And my father quelled that, not just by a court order, but with his oratory in the packed courtroom that had about 400 people in it, way past fire capacity. And the amount of accomplishment that was associated with that was palpable. And the in-house lawyers for the energy company were fawning all over my father. And they drove us back, and the Gulfstream took us to Cheyenne, where my dad got out of the plane. And in those days, I had to spend half my time with my mother, according to a divorce decree. And so the Gulfstream then took me by myself down to Denver, where it was in a fixed base operation at Stapleton Airport in those days. So in that last 25, 30-minute flight, I'm sitting alone on this private jet with sumptuous leather seats, and there's even a galley attendant who's fixing me coffee, and there were blankets, and it was literally like a miniaturized version of Air Force One. And I thought to myself, wow, this sure beats pulling nails out of lumber. This is certainly better than swinging a sledgehammer. And there were some hazards in that job, because sometimes we get the building to fall apart while we're still in it. And that was always an adventure. But I found myself asking myself some real questions on that airplane, which is, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And at that point, I had two known alternatives, three really. I could work in a bowling alley. My grandfather owned a big one in New Jersey. I could do manual labor, which I was doing at age 14, or I could try to pursue a career where I would be doing things like what my father did. And not every lawyer rides around in sumptuous private jets. In fact, most don't. But my dad did, and quite frequently, because of the nature of his clientele and his national practice and his supernatural trial skills. And so I asked myself, how do I turn out more like my dad? And I think kids do this all over the country. They ask themselves, how do I be more like my dad? And if dad happens to be the head of a cartel in Colombia, then the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. If dad is an electrician or a unionized laborer, it may be the young person's dream to work his way up in the union and have status. And those jobs tend to pay fairly well compared to other jobs. And somebody else might fantasize about being an actor. I like to think a lot about young kids who turned into huge stars, people like, Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Tom Cruise, and the list goes on and on and on. These are people who dreamed of acting when they were young and then found a way to make that career more than just mildly successful. The question is, what do you want? And if you ask yourself that question right this minute, what do I want? You might be surprised to find that you don't have an answer. Your mind might go blank. But let's go back to my hypothetical Sunday morning while we're sitting around drinking coffee and maybe reading the Society page or People magazine or something like that, and seeing how the other half lives and sort of wishing we were there. So you know what I think you need to do if you're a person who has this deep sense of disquiet about your current life and you feel like maybe you're wasting your time on this planet? This is an important subject, and I think that saying that you'll figure it out later or one day your ship will come in is counterproductive thought. With all due respect to you, the listener, I think it's important for you to make a decision right now. And, a lot of people that listen to my podcast listen to it in the car. And so you maybe don't have any way to write notes or anything like that. But a firmly made decision is like staking out a tent. You pull the stakes out and drive them into the ground. It holds the tent up, even though it's pulling the tent down, because that's how tents are built. But you can do that. You can pound that stake into the ground psychologically by making a firm decision that from this time forward, much of your extra time, idle time, will be spent in journaling on your dreams. And this is really important, because the first thing you have to do is figure out what your dreams are. Well, if your dream is to be another Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos and launch, Star Trek people into space, that may be a bit of a reach, because an awful lot of things have to fall into place. A lot of those are outside your immediate control. But there are dreams where you don't have to rely so much on things that are outside of your immediate control. So the first job that you have in your journaling assignment from the Little Bald Man is to write down your dreams without censoring, without any sense of whether they're practical or not, without any underlying doubt that would hold you back. Well, I couldn't do that, so I won't write it down. Something like that. You don't want any of those mechanics in your mind while you go through this exercise. What you want to do is say, what dreams do I really have? And then once you've got that list made, you need to look at that list and ask yourself, do I really want that? Or is there something about it that's just exciting? And if it's a having thing, like you want to have a Lamborghini or you want to have the greatest new whatever, be it maybe the newest iPhone or something that's otherwise fairly attainable, this is a matter of shopping and cash flow. I'm not here to talk about shopping and cash flow, and this isn't a video about how to get rich quick. This is a video about how to enrich your life quickly, which may or may not have anything to do with your income. But as I was a boy and I saw my dad do that courtroom adventure, I began to fantasize about being a trial lawyer someday. And at that age in my life, there were two things that I really wanted to accomplish in life. Really three. I wanted to learn to fly. I wanted to be a badass trial lawyer like my dad. And I wanted to be a fiction writer. Well, as I sit here now, I run the best law firm in the central U.S. I have one book out, a second one's coming. And I had a stint in the Air Force, and I'm a fairly accomplished pilot. So those things that were major dreams for me at that age, I've achieved. And you wouldn't believe the number of barriers that got in the way. And the only way I was able to surpass those barriers is by not worrying about the fact that there were barriers. That was a given before the dream was formed. I knew there would be barriers. And the question isn't, am I succeeding? The question was, am I on the path? I want to say that again. The question was not, am I succeeding? The question was, am I on the path? Every day that I could truthfully tell myself I was on the path, if I had major setbacks, and I had plenty, then it didn't matter because I was on the path, you see. And those barriers are on the path too. So they're part of the whole adventure. So you almost have to embrace those barriers. Ryan Holiday wrote a book, and I talk a lot about Ryan Holiday on my podcast, but he wrote a book called The Obstacle is the Way. He's got other books about ego, stoicism, stillness is the key, ego is the enemy, and I think the most recent one is Courage is a Calling. But The Obstacle is the Way is based on the notion that it's the engagement with our obstacles that defines us and defines our lives. And I've heard it said that happiness is accomplishing known forward progress towards an understandable goal. And that includes setbacks, because your setbacks are built in. You have to confront them. The sooner they come to you, the sooner you can deal with them. And that's a mindset. The sooner those obstacles come your way, the sooner you can deal with them. And the more aggressively and more effectively, perhaps more delicately, depending on what the obstacle is, that you deal with it, the faster your overall progress is in the direction of your goals. But now we've used a new word. We've used the word goal. So what's the difference between a goal and a dream? Well, very simply, a dream isn't yet a goal. A goal used to be a dream. Now it's a tangible destination that you're actually heading toward. So first job after you list your goals is figure out a way to turn your dreams into goals. So goals can come on a gradient scale. That means you can do smaller ones, then bigger ones, then bigger ones, then bigger ones. Let's say hypothetically that you are punching the cash register at a grocery store, and you've had that job maybe for 15, 20 years, and you're even maybe thinking about retirement, but you've always wanted to be an actor. So you're not going to get a starring role in the next major blockbuster. That's a given. But what about signing up for acting lessons at a local community college? And through those contacts that you make in the acting lessons, maybe getting an audition for a local play or a local TV commercial that's being shot in your area. TV commercials are not all shot in Hollywood. There's tons of them shot here in Denver. But what if you do it on a gradient, on a gradual basis, and you start doing more and more acting on the side? First training, then auditioning. You might be surprised. You look in the mirror and you say, well, I'm kind of a goofy looking sort. I'll never be an actor. You're not as handsome as this guy or that guy. There's a lot of mean-looking little bald men that have actually been very successful as actors. I cite you to Jason Statham, and I cite you to Bruce Willis, and people like that. They're my heroes because they show that little bald guys can still succeed in life. So when you sign up for the first step, you say, is that step attainable? Would it be attainable to go take some acting lessons? You'd be surprised how inexpensive these lessons are, depending on if you get them through a local community college or a local trade magazine or something along those lines. Or maybe you just sign up for a class at a community college or even at the collegiate level. But you're in the game now. You're on the path. You quit your job at the grocery store? No. You keep that going. Maybe you take your acting classes at night. And then one day you find out about an audition for a part that you might be right for. And if you're a weird-looking person like me, so what? Because most actors are pretty weird-looking people. You can pick up a copy of People magazine and look at the most popular actors and actresses today. How many of them are, plain vanilla good-looking like Tom Cruise or Jennifer Aniston or people like that? Most are not. Most have some unique, weird look to them that is their signature. And I'll leave it to you to look through the magazines and convince yourself that movie star good looks is not something most movie stars have. E.g., you don't have to have it. Well, maybe you don't have an acting passion. Maybe you want to be a famous painter. Go buy some art supplies and watch online painting lessons. There's tons of them out there. The ones by Renato Musilio and Michael James Smith are the best, in my opinion. And because I paint and I love watching their videos, I learn a lot. So figure out the path. Do you want to be in international financial arbitrage? Well, you're going to need an education that maybe you don't have for that. Does that mean you can't go get that education? No. But once you look at your list that you made of what your dreams are, and you've filtered out the ones that aren't really dreams, they're just things that sounded cool at the moment. And you say, all right, how do I turn that into a goal? And then once I've turned it into a goal, that's a mental switch that gets flipped. Then you say, what would be the first step to move in that direction? And you identify that step, and then you plan how to do that step. This is all in writing. And then once you physically start to conduct those actions, you are on the path to your dreams. And from that point forward, you're going to need a little help. Everybody in this world needs help, no matter what they're doing. If you're punching keys at a cash register in a grocery store, somebody had to show you how to do that. So expect help. The fact that you need help is not by itself a disqualifier for that dream. The idea that you're going to have someone do it for you is ridiculous and self-destructive. The idea that you can expect help from lots of people on the way is absolute golden truth. There will be people who will help you with your pursuit of your dreams once you're actually on the path. The path is littered with helpers. You have to have some faith in that. On top of that, you also have to be able to get along with folks. You have to be able to approach people without an overbearing or souring approach that makes them not want to help you. You have to be willing to listen, because the people that are on the path that know what they're doing, who are successful at helping others, they don't need to hear what you think about every little thing. They do need to know what your goal is, and you need to listen to them from that point forward. Some of the advice you get is going to be absolute bullshit. Some of the advice you get is going to be golden. Your own common sense, judgment, and trial and error will help you figure out which of those is which. But there's got to be an inner fire. There has to be this thing that says, hey, I've made this decision. This is a done thing. This decision is made. I'm on the path. and I'm going to keep probing that path. And if I hit a barrier, I'll go around it, over it, or I might have to plow right through it. But whatever it is, I'm going to find lots of barriers, and what I do to be on that path is attack those barriers. A path with no barriers isn't really a path. Believe in yourself, believe in your dream, turn it into a goal, break it into sub-steps, and get started. I hope this has been helpful. I'm Brett Godfrey, and this is Viewpoint. Thanks for listening.